Words are far too limited to explain, but I'm doing my best to try to say what happened. The senses are extremely heightened and don't really work like they do here. Words are completely inadequate because all the senses are wrapped up in each other. Today's NDE is by Bill. I had a doctor appointment to find out why, for the last 3 years, I couldn't walk very far without falling asleep. Any physical exertion was exhausting. After performing dye tests, the doctor was amazed that I was alive, since 85% of one artery and 95% of the other main artery had both occluded. While lying on the table, the doctor told me not to stand up because he couldn't be responsible for what happened when I got up. By all accounts, I should have been dead or would be dead very soon. An emergency triple bypass surgery was scheduled for the following morning. The next morning, prior to surgery, on April 3rd, 2000, my girlfriend brought my children over to see me. My daughter told me she wanted me to wave to her when they were in the parking lot, since she knew which window belonged to my room. The nurse gave me something that knocked me out almost immediately, so I never got to wave goodbye to my children. This guilt followed me during my NDE. When I died on the operating table for the first time, I didn't realize I was dead. There was no out-of-body experience. No tunnels, no light at the end of the tunnel, no spirits, nothing. I was out of my body and just popped into the most beautiful place that I'd ever seen. Light is not visual there. The senses are all-encompassing. Expressions flooded into my being all at once. The experience is so intense that it is hard to explain because it doesn't follow a logical sequence, and it is totally wrapped up in emotion. Words are far too limited to explain, but I'm doing my best to try to say what happened. The senses are extremely heightened and don't really work like they do here. Words are completely inadequate because all the senses are wrapped up in each other. We have the largest vocabulary on Earth based on describing events in terms of what we see. Although I felt the experience, I can best describe it in terms of vision. The grass was so green that it hurt to look at it, and it felt so good. I could even taste the grass by feeling it, and it tasted like watermelon. Walking on the grass was wonderful. It was an incredible feeling. The best way I can describe it was, oh my God, wow! The sense of smell was not with the nose. It was more like it permeated through my cheekbones under my eye, like smelling through the sinuses. I didn't have 360-degree vision like a lot of people. I suppose this was because I was focused on the grass and other things that were closer and more immediate to my attention. The rest of what might be there was unimportant. The best way to describe where I fit into the scheme of things was like I was in a mudroom. This is the area of the house that is not the house, but it's not outdoors either. The mudroom is not hot like in the house, and it's not cold like outside. It's the middle. It's the high traffic area where guests get rid of shoes and get ready to transition into the house. Then 3 yellow lights came forth. They came from the left side of an unbelievably intensely colored green pine tree, the color of the maple leaf in summertime with the light coming through it. I got the feeling of yellow and the taste of lemonade. Not yellow like a banana, but it was more the emotion and feeling of yellow. sort of like a flame dancing on top of a candle during an emotional dinner, and also like the feeling of a warm yellow sunshine. I didn't really see them, but I knew they were there. I can't really call them entities, angels, or devils. They were more like presences. The presences were more like potential battery power. They were energy that was just there. I didn't hear with my ears. Rather, I heard in the middle of my head, close to the back of the frontal lobe. The presence on my right communicated telepathically to me. Communication is not with words as we know it. This being communicated a feeling with the gist of the meaning. You can stay if you want, or you can go back. But if you go back, you have to do something. I knew that I had to go back for a reason. The reason was more like I was not done yet. Not because I have to do something. This is hard to explain, but it is like if you are the boss and something has to be done, but who's going to do it? I elected to come back and finish a few tasks. Part of making up my mind to come back was my children. As happy as I was over there, I got uncontrollably sad. I remembered that I didn't say goodbye to my children. I needed to go back to say goodbye. Then I popped back into my body. Ugh. I could see the rib splitters and heard some guy yelling. I saw the suction device sucking the blood from the chest cavity. I felt my left arm and leg were on fire where they took the veins used for the bypass surgery on the heart. I could feel the pressure of pushing on my heart. I couldn't breathe. Ow! It hurt. And pop, I was back on the other side. Again, there were no tunnels and no spirits. It was just pop, and I was back there. However, this time it was different. Although I was 90% there was also the sense that I wasn't there. The experience was almost the same as the first time, but it was about 10% less intense than the first time. The second time, I didn't get greeted at the door. I wasn't let into the mudroom. I was overjoyed to recognize Meme, my grandmother. She looked like pictures I'd seen in the photo album the day before she got married. She was young, healthy, and vibrant. She's always been very special to me, as she was the only one who truly loved me for me. I didn't have to do anything. She just loved me because I was born. One of the first things to occur to me was to ask why I was here. Meme was highly religious, and I was not. I was wondering why we were both in the same place. Then Meme communicated to me, "Billy, you can't come in. You can't stay. You have to go back." I objected because it hurt so bad to be in my body. She told me she'd go back with me, but I couldn't stay. I wanted to hug her, but couldn't. It was like she was in a soap bubble. I could feel the hug, but knew she didn't physically hug me. It was like the saying that a hug is 10% physical and 90% everything else. To my amazement, I popped back in my body and it didn't hurt. What I saw in the operating room was a light above the operating room lights. It was much brighter than the operating room lights. I knew it was Meme. She made my arm fly up and hit the doctor. I heard, "He's back." So they renewed their efforts to resuscitate me and finish the operation. Meme blocked the pain, like she took it. I was aware that she was smiling at me. During the recovery, it was really hard. I was so depressed. All I could see was a person who had physically wasted away. I so desperately did not want to be here on the one hand, but on the other hand, I really wanted to be with my children. I knew that I would stay for them. After my healing, I knew that my mission was to work with children. I knew I needed to open another Dungeons & Dragons den. In June 2002, I felt touched. I'd had enough of the family gathering and went to get pizza from a place I'd never been to. What I saw was the empty store across from the pizza place. I said, "No way." My rational mind was saying that the town was too small and could not support a den, but here it was. There were at least 40 children on the right and 30 children on the left of the empty store. I knew this was where I would build the den that was part of my reason for coming back to the earth. The next day, I rented the space, and on June 22nd, 2002, on the summer solstice, Cody's castle was opened. Addendum experience. About a week after I talked about my experience for the first time and started to integrate my NDE with my current reality, I had the most amazing experience. I was on the computer in a chat room on Friday at 2:30 in the morning. I normally ignore pop-up windows because they always want you to go to a porn site. However, this time, I clicked on it instead of ignoring it. I immediately felt a tingle of electricity go through the keyboard and into my arm, sending shivers through my body. The woman on the other side was also an NDEer. Normally, I don't ask women for any personal information until I get to know them. However, this time I was being compelled by forces outside of myself. I asked her to give me her phone number so I could talk to her on the phone, and she did. Then when I called her, I was compelled to ask her for her address since I knew she lived within a couple hours' drive from me. She gave me her address. This is so out of character for me, but I couldn't help the compulsion. I hopped in the car and promptly drove halfway across the state so I could be there. I knew that I had to go see her, and it had to be now. I didn't really know where I was going, never been there before, but drove there without any problems. She greeted me at the door. She thought I was there for sex, but I had to explain that that was not what was on my mind. I was there to give her a message. Within 24 hours, she would have had a very bad thing happen to her, and she needed what I had to give her to make it through the ordeal. Consciously, I was doing things I have never done before, yet I couldn't help myself. I took my hands and put one in front and the other in the back of her chest near her heart. I told her, "Here is your power." I seemed to also take something from her. All of a sudden, there was an amazing and intense transfer of energy from me to her. It came from the solar plexus in a rectangular shape. The energy was like wind from a fan that came from me and into her. It made my hair stand up on end and goosebumps all over my arms. I told her that it was a gift of energy and that I was just the messenger. As it was morning and she's diabetic, she went to get her medicine. Just then, the phone rang. We both knew, that's it. The news was about to break. She picked up the phone and started to cry. Her mother was in intensive care. She asked me to take her to the hospital since her mother was in a coma. I told her that I could not take her since this was part of her task that she had to do on her own. I knew then that her mother had sent me to give her the gift of energy and to be with her daughter when she got the news. After she hung up the phone, she went to take her insulin. I got a surge of energy that shot from me to her that froze her like when a deer sees the headlights of an oncoming car. She was frozen for about 10 heartbeats. Then she slowly turned to face me. She had filled the insulin syringe and had intended to kill herself with an insulin overdose. I told her that she now carried the gift. She could not do that now. At that moment, it was like an energy shield surrounded her. It swirled around her like an upside-down tornado. It was like she had a sense of renewed strength and purpose. She grabbed her clothes and got ready like she was going into battle. It was amazing to watch the transformation. On the way home, I was exhausted from lack of sleep for several days. I recall the time of the transfer of power. It was like I was revitalized. I drove home feeling like I had slept for hours.